most of us statistically are going to end up 50 years old down the road. And unless we're deciding where we end up, we might end up somewhere we don't want to be. And I don't want that. I've been places I didn't want to be. I lived lives I didn't want to live. I don't want that anymore. I want to do what we're doing, and I want to do it better.
Each of us have one really good one, one decent one, and one terrible one. That's typically what I do with these triads. So you're either really good at reflecting on the past, really good at focusing on the future, or really good at enjoying the present.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, NLU Weekly Live Podcast, week number 127. Are you living in the past, the present, or the future? Alan, I think back to when I was a young boy, and I look to a young man, a young lad, and I look to where we are today, and I see myself living in three different times. So I remember when I was young. For those who don't know, I grew up without a dad. So I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. And I think when I was a young man, probably like early teens, I was living in the past. I was looking back and saying, oh, I grew up without a dad. Oh, I grew up without this. Oh, this is what my early childhood was like. And I was very, very focused on the pain or the potential traumas that I had endured in the past. If you fast forward, when Alan and I started this journey together, I left my job. I became a very, very broke entrepreneur. I remember at that time, I was quite literally living for the present, where it was, and I said this to you recently, or maybe it was on another podcast. I remember saying to myself, I just have to figure out a way to make rent this month. And then when next month starts, I just have to find out how to make rent next month. And I told Alan this one time, I said, I'm so afraid that I'm going to wake up one day and this is all going to go away. Like I'm going to have to go get a job or whatever it is. I'm so afraid this isn't going to last. I was so focused on the present. I just need to get by. I need to get by. I need to get by. There was no future. There was barely tomorrow. And then I think of where we are today, where I actually kind of get lost in the future. And sometimes I forget about the present and the fact that I'm burning to the ground or working myself silly because I'm so focused on the future. Now more than ever, I believe that there is a very, very, very bright future for Alan and myself. And I know we're going to get there. And I am very, very hyper focused on it. Not as much as Alan, because Alan's charting that course, but I am way more future oriented than I've ever been. The goal in this live, the theme, the through line is how do you balance your past, your present, and your future, and try to enjoy the process as much as you can. Because I know, Alan, you can speak to this as well. I've seen a lot of people who are living from the past. That every thought they have is based on the past. There's other people who are living in the present, and that might be at the detriment of their long-term future. And there's some people who are only living for the future, and they might not be enjoying the present, or they might be in some way hurting themselves in the long run. So our goal is to, I don't want to say balance, but figure out how to juggle all three. Maybe that's better than balance, juggle.
Yeah, I think harmonizing all three or integrating all three. I told Kev I was pumped about this episode because I think about this all the time. I think about past, present, and future, even in my purpose prayer, which is a prayer that I say to myself every single day, and I have for the last 7 years. And it says, learn from the past, enjoy the present, and focus on a brighter future for all. And I think that's really the cheat code is how do you, if you are going to go into the past, do it so you can learn from it, not so that you can beat yourself over the head with it. Jim Rohn used to talk about that all the time, Kev. He's a personal development speaker, for those of you who don't know, from really the late 80s and 90s. Yeah, and he said a lot of people use their past as a billy club that they just keep beating themselves over the head with. And you'll hear Kevin and I talk often about our pasts and our childhoods and some of the difficulties we faced and the challenges we faced, usually to learn about ourselves, to learn about a lot of different things. And so the reframe here is your past is not necessarily something that's terrible that you have to heal from, but rather it was the training ground and the school that you can study in order to go and do the extraordinary things that you're going to do in your future. And so I say learn from the past, number one, enjoy the present, number two, and most importantly, in my honest opinion, is focus on a brighter future. Kev, I've talked to you about this a lot. There's a concept in psychology called nihilism. And I think nihilism is very prevalent in the world today. Nihilism is someone who has a deep belief that the past is brighter than the future. So if you've ever met someone who, well, I've shared this on the podcast before. So when I was in high school, I was really having a hard time for many different reasons. I actually wrote a post about this recently. I remember when I was in high school, I was 14 years old. I was a freshman in high school, and I hit puberty really, really late. And for those of you who are on YouTube, you can see, or Facebook right now, or LinkedIn, you can see that I look very young. So you can imagine I'm 33 now, and I still look very young. So imagine me at 14. I looked like a tiny little boy. And there was some of these guys in high school that looked, 30 when they were in high school, and they were dunking basketballs, and they were just super athletic. And I hadn't hit puberty yet, so I just didn't, understand why I was so small, and I was always red-faced and embarrassed and all that. And so I just focused on academics. And what was I trying to say there? Learning from my past, enjoying the present, focusing on a brighter future for all. So what did I do? What I did instead of trying to change my genetic makeup and make me somehow hit puberty faster so I can be more athletic, what I did instead is focus on the future. I've always done that. I've always played the long game. And so I do think that all of us really can focus on our own brighter future. And, I was talking about nihilism. So people who, I remember when I was in high school, I was having a hard time, and people used to tell me, these are the best years of your life. I remember my mom and stepdad, they had friends who would say, like, don't forget, like, high school, these are the best years of your life. And I remember thinking, like, God, I hope not. God, I hope not. Because in my head, it was like, please tell me that's not true. High school, in my opinion, was not the best years ever. And in hindsight, by the way, they weren't at all. So focus on a brighter future. Don't be nihilistic. Try to be optimistic about your future and then build toward it. And you can learn from the past, build in the present, and then really you can create a brighter future. And I think at NLU, we have a deep belief in the opposite of nihilism. Nihilism is the hopelessness of the past is better than the future. At NLU, we have a deep belief that the future can be brighter than the past ever was. And that's what we're building towards every single day.
Formerly the Hyperconscious Podcast, if you can't tell by my shirt, that my wonderful, listen for this, Alan, wife got me. My girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now.
Pretty cool.
So that's kind of a big deal.
At one point, that was just a dream.
At one point, that was just a dream. I had I would say, weird / dark thought recently, and I've told you this, but I'm having more of these. For a long time, I was not focused on the future in terms of, I exercise because I enjoyed exercise. And I ate the foods I wanted because I enjoyed the foods I wanted. I spent the money I spent because I wanted to spend the money. Now I really am focused on, okay, I'm exercising now more for the future than I am today, which is weird for me. And I'm eating I eat a salad every day. I don't eat a salad every day because I want a salad every day necessarily, but a lot of what I'm trying to do is for a brighter future. And I told Alan this recently. I said, for the first time in my life, if I die at 50, I am going to be pissed. I am going to be so angry because I've put so much of the past and the present into the future and what we're creating. And that's the first time I've ever really felt like that. I know in the past it's not that I didn't care about the future, but I wasn't focused on it. I wasn't optimizing for the future. And I was just trying to live in the present. So if there's somebody out there, Alan, who, I guess, number one, how do you figure out where you're currently living? Because it might sound super simple, but in practice, it's probably a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, it would be when you're making a decision, you have to analyze what your decision-making paradigm is. A decision-making paradigm is very simple. So I'll give you an example. What's a good example of this? Okay, when Emilia and I were searching for a condo to move into, or a home to move into, we chose a condo because we knew we were both building businesses and we didn't want to have to do a ton of landscaping. We also chose one that had offices across the way from each other. And we also chose a location that had excellent Wi-Fi. That was all based on not the enjoyment of the home, but the future of our businesses. So you have to check in with, I was on the phone with a client recently. It was actually an audio message, sorry. So we had a coaching call, and then I audioed her the next day about this. And I said, listen, you said something on our coaching session the other day that concerned me. And I essentially said this. I said, I want you to be one of my Navy SEAL level business clients. So I'm going to be extra hard on you. And this is what you've asked. So I'm just going to do it. I said, you said something the other day about, so she's trying these new energy drinks to be a peak performer and to get her caffeine in throughout the day. And she said, I just really don't like the taste of those. These Zoas that I drink, I think are the cleanest form of caffeine that I've ever tried. And I've tried a bunch of different ones. I've tried pre-workouts, and I've tried coffee, and I've tried Bangs, and I've tried Monster, and I've tried Red Bull, and I've tried all these different ones. And you got to be careful with these energy drinks because a lot of them are really detrimental to your health. But these are the cleanest ones that I've found that I think are really good without a crash. And so anyways, I was sharing that with her. She tried them, and she's like, I just can't do Zoas. Like, they just don't taste good. And so anyways, I send her an audio message, and I said, I want you to know something about peak performers. And again, I want you to be a Navy SEAL level client. So I'm just going to be harder on you for a second. When you made that decision to not drink Zoas, I think you were thinking more about the experience than you were utility. I like the taste of coffee more than Zoas as well. But Zoas have less of a crash. They have less calories, unless you're drinking your coffee black, in which case black coffee I don't really like that much. I think it tastes like crap. But here's my point. If she was focused on maximizing her future, she wouldn't care about the taste that much. She would care only about the fact that Zoa hydrates you much better than coffee, in my opinion, again. But she was more focused on taste, which is fine, but she's more focused on the experience of the present moment than she is. So I told her this. I said, peak performers are more focused on utility than they are experience. So for example, I love sushi, favorite food in the world. My main focus is not what roll will I enjoy the most. There's these deluxe rolls that we get sometimes that are $17 a pop. And I need to eat a lot of calories, and I only eat once a day because I do intermittent fasting, which means that I essentially don't eat for 16 hours at a time. And so it's my one big meal. And Kev, I get what Emilia calls basic rolls, which is spicy tuna, spicy salmon. And why? Because they're only $7 a piece, and I want to eat a lot. So I got to fit my calories in, and sushi doesn't have a lot of calories. So I'm basing my decision-making paradigm on the cost of the rolls per calorie in. The macros of sushi are awesome because it's mostly carbs and protein, but there's spicy mayo on it, so I'm getting my fats in too. But the point is that if I was optimizing just for experience, I would buy the $17 ones because they're way more delicious. Oh my God, they're so good. But here's what we do. We got 10 rolls between the two of us. We eat a lot. And she fasts as well, so it's our only big meal. And 2 of the rolls were deluxe rolls, which were $17 a piece, and they taste amazing. And then the 8 rolls were the basic ones. But my point is that if we were optimizing only for the present, we wouldn't care at all about how much it costs. We wouldn't care at all about the macros. We would just get the deluxe rolls because they're unbelievably delicious. And so you got to check in with your decision making. Are you making most of your decisions based on what you want in the moment, or are you making most of your decisions based on what's best for you in the future? And by the way, and this is the last thing I'll say on this point, this question, every single time you optimize for the present, your future takes a hit. Spend $100 today for the present moment, your future takes a potential hit. It's called opportunity cost. Or you can invest the $100 and your present takes a hit and your future gets brighter. There's a way to integrate it so that you can try to enjoy the present along the way while investing for the future, but that's what the definition of an investor is. It's sacrificing current pleasure for future gain. So you can either play now and pay later, aka credit cards, or you can pay now, investment account, and play later. And so I think that's really past, present, future in a nutshell.
Hey guys, my name is Jacob Valvalon, and I just finished Next Level Group Coaching. When I joined, I wasn't sure what I was walking into. But during the entire course and the program, I figured out it's not something that I wanted to do, it's something I needed to do. They helped set me on the right path with learning how to do PPTs, peak performance tracking, and every 2 weeks I was gaining new awarenesses and getting a lot more happier, first of all, in my health, wealth, and love, but also winning more practically and tactically in business. So if you're looking to upgrade your life and get to that next level, definitely sign up for that group coaching.
I had a deep conversation with one of my friends. He's very, very, very good at delaying gratification. Like one of the best
I know
ever.
who you're talking about.
Yeah. And we were having a conversation. He's like, I had a really good year and I have money in the bank and I'm making more money than I ever have. And I want to get a new car. Like I want to get a toy. I really want to get a toy. We always used to talk about it. It's a 2003 Mustang Cobra. Collector's car. It will go up in value. So it actually is a good investment. And he's like, I don't know if I can justify doing it. And we had this conversation a couple times, and it's one of those things where it's like, look, you're so good at delaying gratification, maybe you should give yourself a treat. That's what I would say. And he actually ended up
Worst
getting
financial advice of all time.
he ended up getting a new car. Or not a new car, but he got a used, nicer car. And it was one of those things for him where it's like he has put so much of the past into the future. And now he's in the present that he was looking at from that past and saying, you know what, I'm in a better spot than I realized. Look, do I really want to wait however long until I do this? Let me do this now. I think that most of us have like one strength and probably, do you think it's one strength and two weaknesses?
I think each of us have one really good one, one decent one, and one terrible one. That's typically what I do with these triads. So you're either really good at reflecting on the past, really good at focusing on the future, or really good at enjoying the present. And then usually you have a detrimental one. So if you're really good at focusing on the future, you probably struggle staying present. And that's mine for sure. So Emilia and I, we're very good at focusing on the future. We have a really hard time treating ourselves in the present and staying present. That's why after 8 o'clock, we have house rules of like shut off work and like really try to get some R&R. But even then we're going to the gym, right? So usually there's a really good one, a decent one, and a bad one, quite frankly,
like
from my perspective.
I think I'm good at present. I do
You've
believe
always
I'm
been
really
good
good
at present.
But I think I'm good at reflecting.
I would agree. Makes
I'm
sense.
not as
You're also trying to
future.
balance me out.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to keep this thing on the rails.
we make jokes, but we'll bring people behind the curtain. In the business, so this is the analogy for every business. Every business owner, hopefully this will land. We're on a ship, okay? All of us, and this is for our lives as well. There's the crew, which is setting the sails and rowing the ship. There's the first mate, which is making sure that the crew has what they need and is fully supported. Then there's the captain with, steering the ship towards the horizon. And then there's the fourth person below deck with the compass charting the course. And all of us have to be all four all the time. And it's very, very difficult to do that. And the analogy here that Kevin and I used to joke about is that I'll be headed to the horizon, charting the course with the compass, like 10, 15 years, we're going to be golden. It's going to be great. Don't even worry about it. And Kev's like, yeah, but like there's a hole in the boat right there. Like we are literally going to drown. Right. And so all of us, and Kevin's always been more focused on the present than me. I've always been more focused on the future than him. And both of them have been very, very critical in the success of our business. But for each of our own lives, we don't always have other people checking in on these things for us. There have been times where Kev was very like, hey, by the way, this needs to get done today. Yep. And I'm still focused on, the future and building the infrastructure of the business. And so just if you're out there watching or listening to this, ask yourself, like, which one is your strength? Which one's the one that you're mostly focused on? I would say the majority of people are good at the present, I think. I think they're focused mostly on the present. I think some people are dwelling on the past. I think that's dangerous. Well, here's what I would say, and then I want to ask you a question, Kev. A question.
A question.
A question. So the first part of this is you can either learn from the past or you can dwell on it. Your choice. If you're going to dwell on it, you're most likely going to focus on the bad, feel like crap again about something you were embarrassed by or mistake you made or whatever. Trauma you endured. Or you can learn from it. Present. You can either worry in the present about the future, or you can build in the present toward the future. And then when it comes to the future, you can look at it with optimism and excitement or apprehension and fear. And these are all subconscious processes. right? No one wakes up in the morning and is like, wow, I'm really pessimistic. Like, no, it just slowly becomes a little bit more pessimistic. And remember, if you are pessimistic and you are nihilistic and you are depressed and struggling, you got to try to get around some more optimistic people. Optimistic people will rub off on you. It's so awesome. I mean, NLU is like my family. Everybody is so focused on the future. And don't get me wrong, that can be challenging at times, especially in the present, but it's really nice to have so many people that are there to lift you up when you are feeling down and when you are feeling hurt and embarrassed about the past or whatever it is. So I would say get around some really optimistic people that are focused on the future. Whichever one you struggle with, try to get around someone who is good at that one.
People ask me that all the time when I go on shows, and again, this is different, but they said, like, what did you do when you were struggling the most? And I said, I surrounded myself with people who believed in a brighter future because it helped me believe in a brighter future. And that's just to your point. It's very easy to see where you are in the present and say, well, it's kind of my past too. I mean, my past hasn't changed much into the present. My future's not going to change either. So I'm just going to focus right now on getting by. And you forget that days are going by every single day, and weeks are going by, and months are going by, and years are ultimately going by. But you do have to believe to some degree that the future can be brighter than the present is right now.
You
and
told me once.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, hopefully it's a little bit brighter than the past. So at least you know you're making progress. You feel you're making progress.
You told me once that you were at a time in your life, and you've shared this publicly, so I'm not airing you out here, but you told me once there was a time in your life when you just you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I would argue that and I've been there for short times in my life too. I talk about the time when I called a suicide hotline, and I wasn't suicidal, but I knew I needed something. I needed therapy or something. And I ended up buying a program that was all about affirmations. Essentially, it was personal development in CD form, and therapy in CD form, which was really quite helpful, honestly. So I've been nihilistic at times too. When you go back to that version of Kevin, who's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like this thing, life sucks. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. What would you tell him knowing what you know now?
It's so interesting because I say this all the time. You got to look at the past probably. And when I say look at the past, I think you have to understand your past. There's a difference between dwelling on and exploring and studying and taking bits and pieces from. When I went to, and it's interesting now connecting, and especially during this episode, when I was struggling, I went to therapy. And when I went to therapy, we weren't talking about the future. We were talking about the past. We were talking about, well, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about this. Tell me about this. Tell me about this. That helped me understand that the reason my present is the way it is because there's a lot of unaddressed crap from the past that I haven't dealt with. And I think that you have to understand, we think the future starts today, but for many of us, the future starts where we're not looking. And that's with our traumas, and that's with our triggers, and that's with the stuff we dealt with in the past. So that's what I always say. If you feel stuck in the present and you're not sure you're excited for a brighter future, I would look back. That helped me tremendously because I understood myself at a deeper level. And then it made sense. I was able to decode, well, where I am today isn't actually where I think I am. It's just I'm looking through the lens of so many other things. But when I understood where I came from, it was a lot easier for me to understand why I am where I am today. So that's what I would say. I don't even know if I gave any advice on that, but it would be look into your past and get help, honestly. Have somebody sit down with you and explore your past because the keys are probably buried back there. And that's for Alan and myself. What do we talk about all day today? We talked about our pasts, really.
Yeah.
Right? And behind the scenes business talks. A lot of it's about our past.
Definitely.
We do have to get off here in a minute, Alan, just FYI.
If you are going to analyze your past as well, I'll say this briefly, you can do it from a new awareness. That's the thing. I've come to understand something this past week that I didn't realize before. And then what Kevin and I spent some time masterminding about today was re-understanding everything I thought I understood. Like going through the Rolodex of my past from that new lens of understanding. Last question, Kev. So you obviously, from the moment we started working together, you've been incrementally and kind of exponentially looking more and more into the future. how and why, and help people with that.
That's a tough one because I'm around you so often. It's easy for me to look into the future because you've kind of painted a picture of what it's going to look like. So I can't take as much. If you weren't here, I would. I'd be like, I am a visionary, man. That's what it is. I see everything. I see hundreds of years into the future. For me, I've just been around you for so long, and you've said all this stuff was going to come true, and a lot of it has come true, and I know a lot of it is in the process of coming true. So how I got around somebody who is more future-oriented than I. And I ask questions. I think I'll give myself credit on that. I'll give you most of the credit, but I'll give myself credit for I ask questions. Like, hey, what is life going to look like this time next year? And then at least I can understand what it could look like, and then I can try to reverse engineer how to add value to that. The why, you're gonna end up, I think it's a Jim Rohn quote, something along the lines of, 5 years from now, you're gonna end up somewhere. You might as well decide where it is. You should have some sort of input. You should have some sort of decision-making weight on where you're gonna end up. That, I think we lose sight of the fact that most of us statistically are going to end up 50 years old down the road. And unless we're deciding where we end up, we might end up somewhere we don't want to be. And I don't want that. I've been places I didn't want to be. I lived lives I didn't want to live. I don't want that anymore. I want to do what we're doing, and I want to do it better. So I think that you have to understand that if you're not thinking about the future, you're probably giving up a lot of control for your future. And you might not realize it until, I don't want to say it's too late, but you might not realize it until a lot of time ticks off the clock. And if you're in the fourth quarter, you're probably going to regret that.
I know we got to go.
We're Jeffing bad.
We are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, we're way over.
Yeah.
That's right, because I'm so used to the 40 minutes.
That's okay. You got
okay. The Jim Rohn quote, by the way, he talks about how
you're going to correct the kid live.
Sorry, brother. Sorry. No. I just love the quote. In 5 years, you will surely arrive. The only question is where. Yeah. You're going to arrive in one of two locations, an undesigned location or a well-designed location, and it's up to you. I guess since we have to go, that'll be the end.
My quote was better. My quote was better than Jim Rohn's.
Well, I think that's probably
I'm just kidding.
Inaccurate, but
Next Level Nation. We are doing our monthly giveaway. If you are a member of Next Level Nation, you may have heard me talk about this, but we want to give away some money. So at the end of the month, we are going to go through all the reviews that have been left, and we're going to choose one lucky winner, send them a $100 Amazon gift card straight to their email. We just want to help more people. And when you go to Amazon, when you go to the movies, you are looking at the reviews to see if you are the type of person who would like this. So the more reviews we have, the more people we can help. And if you can get $100 out of it, why not?
Also, in 22 days from now, unless you're listening to this recording, in which case I think it's, 7 days from now or something like that?
This is next Tuesday, so yeah, something like that.
8 days. So Group 8 is closing on October 4th. If you are out there and you're like, you know what, I feel like I've become a little bit nihilistic and hopeless. I'm struggling to believe in myself. I'm struggling to stay consistent and accountable. I know I'm capable of more, but I'm sick and tired of feeling alone in my growth journey. Group coaching is literally designed and created for you. So many of the NLU team members were born out of group coaching. They came from group coaching. So we've graduated 62 people to this point. It's about to be 72 with Group 7. And it's going to be 82 after Group 8. So join us. You'll have an assistant coach. You'll have a workbook. The curriculum is specifically designed to set you up on a springboard towards your own dreams. It really has become quite the polished product at this point. So click the link in the comments and or the show notes. There's a very unflattering video of Kevin and I that you can watch if you'd like. Please sign up. Please apply. We can't wait to hear from you soon.